Hello, everyone. My name is James Sweet, and today I'm speaking on behalf of the Environmental Protection Agency. Today, I'll be discussing the quite popular topic of climate change. Now, changes in the climate have been happening for hundreds of thousands of years, and until recent centuries, these changes have been mostly naturally occurring. The difference now is that recent climate change has been the result of human activity. Human activities over the past century have released tremendous amounts of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, leading global temperatures to rise due to the greenhouse effect. Now, the greenhouse effect is a natural process that allows there to be life on Earth by regulating the Earth's temperature. But humans are adding more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere than are needed, which is altering the natural balance of gases in the atmosphere. You can think about these greenhouse gases as a blanket around the planet, trapping some solar energy into the atmosphere and reflecting some back into space. So, with more of these greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, more solar energy is being trapped in our atmosphere, leading to the potential warming of the Earth and changes in weather patterns. Human activities that are releasing so many greenhouse gases into the environment consist of the burning of fossil fuels, such as coal, oil, and pollution, and deforestation, since trees take out carbon dioxide of the atmosphere. Now, climate change leads to some extremely severe consequences. Climate change has already had observable effects on the environment. According to NASA, global temperatures will almost certainly continue to rise due to greenhouse gases from human activities. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change actually predicts that we will experience a global temperature rise of 2.5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit over the next century. These higher temperatures will likely lead to the Arctic Ocean becoming ice-free in summer before mid-century. This will destroy the habitats of many animals that live in the Arctic and could possibly lead to the extinction of multiple species. The melting Arctic is adding more water into our oceans, causing sea levels to rise. Rising sea levels will swamp coastal areas all over the world, which will destroy cities and the homes of millions of people all over the world. Furthermore, the increased evaporation of water from melting ice caps is like a fuel for storms such as hurricanes that call for extreme weather events. Greenhouse gases are also leading to ocean acidification because nearly a third of carbon emissions end up in oceans, which triggers a chemical change making the water more acidic, destroying the well-inhabited coral reefs and the shells of sea creatures. Climate change is also a major threat to agriculture, as worldwide farmers are struggling to keep up with the shifting weather patterns and the unpredictable water supplies. Farms are also more likely to be attacked by weeds, pests, and diseases, which reduces yield. With temperatures continuing to rise, droughts and heat waves everywhere are projected to become more intense. Heat waves can be deadly as they can cause humans and many other creatures to experience heat exhaustion, which can slow blood flow and cause vital organs to shut down. As it should now be clear to everyone listening, climate change is harming our planet and has the potential to do much more harm in the near future. So you're probably not wondering, what are we going to do to slow this human-inflicted climate change all over the world? Now, there's an agreement called the Paris Agreement, which is an agreement within the United Nations Convention on Climate Change that deals with the greenhouse gas emissions adaptation and finance starting in the year 2020. The language of this agreement was negotiated by the representatives of 196 parties and adopted by consensus in December of 2015. As of February 2018, 195 United Nations Convention on Climate Change members have signed the agreement and 175 have become party to it. The agreement aims to respond to the global climate change threat by keeping a global temperature rise this century well below the 2 degrees Celsius mark. In the Paris Agreement, each country determines, plans, and consistently reports its own contribution that it should make in order to alleviate global warming. However, in June 2017, United States President Donald Trump announced that he intended to withdraw the United States from the agreement, which led to national and international disapproval. Despite the United States planning to withdraw from the agreement still has a large amount of support behind it, which is driving other countries to put forth efforts to mitigate climate change. Also, the province of Manitoba in Canada has recently introduced the Climate and Green Plan Implementation Act. The act includes 5 separate acts that cover a variety of environmental and economic areas, including a new Climate and Green Plan Act, a new Industrial Greenhouse Gas Emissions Control and Reporting Act, and amendments to the Water Protection Act. The proposed legislation would establish greenhouse gas emission limits for industrial facilities and hold operators accountable if they exceed their established limits. The United States government has not proposed any substantial legislation recently, but there are many people who are currently fighting to push legislation into Congress. To ultimately solve the climate change issue, action must be demanded upon our elected leaders to support a new set of climate change solutions. First off, it is vital that the use of renewable energy is expanded and that energy systems become less dependent on fossil fuels. The burning of fossil fuels is a top contributor to climate change, so burning less fossil fuels needs to be a top priority. Along with switching to more renewable energy sources, there needs to be limits on the amount of carbon that polluters are allowed to emit. Currently, the regulations on the amount of carbon that polluters can emit are just not strict enough. To substantially reduce carbon emissions, these regulations must become very strict, or else the climate change problem will keep getting worse. Also, it is very important that we reduce the amount of tropical deforestation. Trees and plants are extremely healthy for the environment as they have the ability to suck carbon dioxide out of the air. By cutting down trees in mass quantities, we are eliminating our natural carbon catchers that are working in our favor. Instead of cutting down trees and plants, more of them should be planted because they can help fight climate change to our little expense. Furthermore, the use of public transport needs to be increased. By doing so, this will decrease the amount of emission-heavy vehicles that people use every day. And while we're talking about vehicles, our vehicles need to be first replaced by hybrids and then ultimately electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are extremely environmentally friendly and they have the potential to have a huge positive impact on our environment in the near future. All these solutions are very effective ways of helping the climate change cause, but you're probably wondering what you can personally do to help the cause. Well, for all of you that are ready to help the cause, you are in luck because there are many ways you can do so. One way is by simply consuming less. According to scientificamerican.com, the easiest way to cut back on greenhouse gas emissions is to buy less stuff. Whether it may be reusing a grocery bag, buying less food, or buying less of other items, cutting back on consumption only results in fewer fossil fuels being burned to produce and ship products from all around the world. Though it may seem extreme, having less children is an amazing way to reduce your carbon footprint. It is estimated by the United Nations Environmental Program that it requires 54 acres to sustain an average human being today. All this production for one person puts into perspective how much goes into sustaining human life. So having less children only means less production, which means a lower amount of carbon emissions. It is also not a bad idea to unplug and take a break from your electronic devices. It takes a high amount of energy to charge and keep your electronics running, so reducing your use of electronics will reduce your power use, which will ultimately reduce the amount of emissions that you're responsible for. Another great way to reduce your carbon footprint is to eat organic when you can. Organic is not only good for us because we're not putting pesticides in our bodies, but organic food is also grown without synthetic fertilizers, most of which begin as byproducts of oil refining, which is a process that releases many pollutants into the atmosphere. As you can see, there are many simple things that you can do to positively affect the climate change cause, most of which I have not listed because there are just so many. It takes a minimal amount of effort to do a few things that will make a big difference in our world. If everyone contributes a little, together we will fight climate change and make our world a better place for future generations. And now that you understand the dangers of climate change, I hope that you are ready to make a difference. But for now, I am James Sweet from the Environmental Protection Agency, and remember, the future of our precious world is in your hands.